All right, guys, so let's start standing tonight. Remember that tonight's class is a specialty class. So most yoga classes, you're going to find a well-rounded approach of flexibility and strength and movement and stillness. Tonight, extra emphasis on that tension release, lengthening muscles, softening muscles. All right, and there's many modalities. It is always good to have a nice warm-up to start. So what do we think of when we think warm-up, right? Blood flow, a lot of movement. Uh, Movement, right, is the main way we warm up. So let's just start with our spine, bend the knees, and just start to twist a little bit here. Now, this is a pretty, it seems simple, but it's a pretty aggressive movement, especially if you have back pain, right? If you have back pain, you might want to pivot from your hips a little bit more. So you can see I'm rotating less from the waist. But if you're feeling up to it, you can like bend your knees and even kind of, remember, movement without weight like this is going to help release muscles. There's no resistance, so it is going to encourage muscles to lengthen a little bit longer. If you know that myology, the cross-bridge mechanism of how your muscles lengthen and shorten, resistance, right, is going to cause them to not lengthen as long. So no weight, we can lengthen here. All right, so there's the spine forward to the sides. So as we rotate left, our left rotators shorten, and as we rotate right, our left rotators lengthen. All right, yogis, so next, let's go a little forward and back. So just take your hands on your knees, bend your knees a little bit, your thighs, and look how I arch my back, lift my chin. Exhale, I round the spine, tuck the chin. So there's a little difference, standing cat-cow, right? Inhale, I stick the tailbone up and away, I lift the chin. Exhale, I round. Usually do cat-cow. So now we're looking at the front and back of the spinal joints, and we're really getting into your first pelvic tilt, where the tailbone goes up and back, and then the tailbone kind of comes forward and up. Tailbone back, tailbone under the legs. Think of like if you had that tail, it goes up and away, tucks under your legs. Okay? So we've recovered, just looking at how we set up a warm-up, right? We twisted, pivoted through the spiral lines. Now we're going forward and back first time. All right, next exercise for warm-up, just keep going, feet wide. Look how I kind of pivot the hips side to side. So now it's our spinal joints going side to side. So third spinal action, second more pelvic action, and our second real leg action, all right? The leg is actually in the joint going like this, right? It's kind of like your legs are doing this. So nice big opener for those hips. Now, I kind of pivot and move bigger here. So I continue that movement, but I go back, left, and then I can even bend the knees a little bit. No resistance, no impact, not like a super cardio warm-up. I always say like, oh, there's multiple levels of warm-up if you're going big. If you're going for like a peak exercise routine in your week, you have maybe like 10 to 15 minutes break a sweat on the treadmill, let's say, or rower or stairs, and then you have dynamic warm-up like what we're doing now. All right, so you did both directions, right? And just to be clear, that covers hip circumduction, right? So your hips were just going like this. All right, arms go like this here, guys. Nice circles. If you have tight shoulders, go a little bit slower and smaller, or bend the elbows. If you're feeling pretty good, make big circles, but if you have anything going on in the shoulders, be easy, yogis. All right? Switch directions. So that's circumduction for our four ball and socket joints. We were thinking spine and pelvic tilts, and then we're thinking major joints, hips, and the shoulders. Now we'll go knees, a little bit more ankles, just a little air squatting, not too many. Nice inhale, exhale. So you notice I'm also going to think shoulder, forward and back. I kind of reach those arms forward. Now that's called shoulder flexion and elbow extension. And then exhale, I get that good elbow flexion and shoulder extension. Inhale, exhale. If there's another version you like to do, we've done this one a lot. okay? Just a couple what we call air squats. It has to be in your warm-up, guys. A bending of the knee. Try not to like hunch your chest too far forward. If you're just joining, we're just doing a 5-minute warm-up here. Most of the class tonight will be holding static stretches. So I do want to emphasize the heat building. If you start to feel hot, that's exactly what we want, okay? Right, in exercise, guys, it's very common you hear the idea that it releases a lot of endorphins, which is very true, but there's also something that helps you, your opiate receptors get better, so endorphins affect you better. It's called dynorphins, right? So think of like the opposite of endorphins. So they hit your opiate receptors, to make a very long story short, and then it actually helps in the long run stress management. So it's a way your body's starting to deal with stress. Shake it out. Neck, nice and light. We're here at the end of the warm-up. So now we're back in the spine. The neck did go a little bit forward. Up and down. Not too much of the spine, a big circular motion. So guys, we're gonna do like 3-4 more movements, that's it, all right? Second direction. I could go further range here. A warm-up, guys, we're never challenging our peak flexibility or strength in a warm-up. I mean, unless you're having an excellent day. And as you always progress, your warm-up evolves too. I warm up with things that I used to do for my peak years back, right? So your warm-up always is progressing just like your challenging exercise, right? But warm-up in general is not like peak challenge. All right, watch me here. Little calf raises, please. Go ahead. Just a few. I always recommend basically like, you should be doing calf raises at least 3 times a week, if not more. It'll really change like how your feet function, how you walk, how your back line will take more of the weight. If you start to get stuff like this, head forward, this. Calf raises should be done like every day. You're on your morning walk. You get a couple of these. It's really good, guys. Okay. Next exercise here is the hip hinges. So now we just tensed here. Now we'll tense through our back line. We're coming near the end of the warm-up. If you're just joining, about a 10-minute warm-up into our strong, nice stretching tonight. On our inhale, lean your weight into your toes, please. Notice I'm not really reaching for my toes yet. Again, it's not for peak range. Back up, I kind of squeeze my butt and my thighs. Inhale. They're called hip hinges or, Romanian deadlift. People do it with weight. You have like weight here and you hinge. Just notice how my butt doesn't go way far back. You see that? It's forward over the heels. You should, as you go forward, feel some tension. And then you come up and squeeze your legs. The idea is, yogis, we want to really activate everything before we stretch. Some days I will say, let's just start stretching, but in general, it's really good to warm up, okay? Because we're going to be still most of class. So, get the most out of this warm up. All right, guys. So this next thing is our biggest movement now. It's called the spiral. If you are not familiar with this, it can be a little confusing. Now, it's a step back with a lunge. And as I step a foot back, that same arm goes up away from the leg. So I'm going to show you quick. Left foot back, left arm up, and I kind of twist to the right. You see that? Left foot forward, right foot back, right arm up and across and away. You notice I'm kind of going a little slower. It's our biggest stretch yet. Now from the front, look, as my left foot goes back, my left arm goes up across. My right hand can kind of find here. There's like further versions we do, but there you go. And then as my right foot goes back, my right arm goes forward and away. And then you can see how I'm adding like a little side bend, there's a twist. We get a lot further with this too, right? You kind of can go a lot deeper if you want. You know, if you have to pick like 10 dynamic exercises, it's hard to beat that one. It's like full complex asymmetry. It's the spiral. It's the coil. So anything that's the coil it falls under the coil positions. You can't beat that as far as warming up the body in a full complex way. All right, guys. So first little stretch here, but if you want to roll out your wrists quick, wiggle your fingers. We kind of ran through all the joints in the body there. We're ready. We're still going to do one more movement down here too, and then we're going to stretch. Hands on your hips, big inhale. Now we reach for the toes. First stretch here, it's a little bit shorter. Notice, look at, and you see how my butt leans back? I want to try to bring my hips forward over my feet more. Sometimes you see people back here. Try to get the hips forward. I suggest bending your knees to keep your spine longer. Because if that rounding of the spine and tension happens, especially if you have any bulging discs, any spinal conditions, stenosis, what else, herniations, you have like the asymmetrical tilt in the pelvis, you have, you know, the slipping of the SI, the counter nutations, you know, there's a lot of things you'd rather, if you had back pain, guys, I would suggest stretching like this more, okay? You're still gonna get a killer stretch. Just keeping that spine disciplined and long so the tension doesn't go into the arch. You keep that engaged and supported. All right, let's step back to our tabletop. Cat-cow, please. Inhale, arch the back. We did a round, but it's not a round where people can really get moving here. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Go ahead. Like I say, cat-cow should pretty much be done every day, or at least any day you're feeling a little tired, a little achy, a little stiff. You know, you're taking your exercise a little bit lighter. You might skip it on a big day, but also you might use it to really warm up that core well, and it'll help you. All right, and then a quick downward dog here, yogis. Hands, spread those fingers and press those hands down. Tuck the toes and lift the sit bones up and back. I'm kind of using this to get in your calves a little bit more and to get into your toes and your feet particularly. It also starts to get into your underarms. Many benefits here. Try to lift those sit bones up and back and press those hands down. Hey, welcome. If you're just joining, welcome. You're here at the end of the warm-up, so you missed warm-up, but it's okay. The stretches we're about to do, you can do cold. You can do cold. You just be a little easier. And maybe breathe a little bit more, turn on your heater or something. A good thing to do is if like you're not feeling warm, just put on more clothes. You know, I like to keep pants on. It keeps my legs really warm. You almost want your legs to feel like too warm, right? All right, guys, down to the knees. Okay, our first stretch tonight is the Sphinx. So we hold the back bend. All right, guys, let's bring it down to the chest. And what I want you to be aware of here is your pelvic tilt. You know, you can give tons of cues, but the main things I want you to be aware of is your spine and your pelvic tilt, pelvic stability. So my elbows are under my shoulders. Now, if someone was a beginner, you'd be down here, just lifting that chest a little bit, right? I could hold this for a good minute, not overstraining. As you practice, you're here. I do want to point the toes down. So listen, notice if your heels roll out or in, and try to be right on the top midline of the foot. It's not that that's wrong. Those are actually styles of this pose. It's more that just letting things happen repetitively without your full awareness is what is wrong, okay? Press your feet down. Now here's where I do want to engage the legs maybe a little bit, especially in the beginning. You can relax them as we go. Press your pubic bone down, especially if you have back pain, yogis, in the beginning here. You want to drive your pubic bone down, so that supports your arch, right? And then pull the belly in and up. Try to bring your shoulders a little bit back and down. We're going to go for about one more minute. If you're having a super fantastic feel-good day, our second variation would be here for a minute. Cobra on our hands. But yogis, spinal length and posterior tilt is the name of the game. It's always usually about,
when I work with people private, it's always usually about developing extension, hip extension and posterior tilt, right? And then also bringing in knee, if you want to get really detailed, knee extension and a ankle activation. So we're teaching those joints to stabilize right through the foot, ankle, calf, knee, hip, lower back. If your spine and core sit atop a really sturdy, complete chains leg with pelvic tilt, you ain't gonna get back pain, okay? It's more about the compound leg in complexity. So if you have like a repetitive pattern in the leg and you always do compound, it's not nearly enough. You have to look at the planes and the compounds that are missing. I know a lot of this stuff might not make sense, but we're just, planting seeds. We're learning as we go. You get on saying stuff, it's gonna go right out the window, and then I'll say it again. Oh yeah, I'm kind of getting it now. It's a learning process, all right? Child poses next, yogis. So we didn't do yoga squat yet, so I'm choosing to bring it in here now. You lower down, you windshield wipe your body a little side to side, and then you push your butt to your heels. So your butt goes to your heels, your forehead goes on the mat. A little extra here, guys, 2 options would be, say you have a little pressure in your forehead, you can, massage your forehead on the brick, yoga block, or on the floor. If you have tightness in if your shoulders are tight, you could start to hyperlat, which is where I reach in child pose, but look how I took those blocks. There's about 6 inches between my blocks, so my head can fall down here, okay? And what those blocks are doing is just lifting your arms up higher, getting into that underarm more. That muscle is called your lat. It's, by some people, it's considered like the #1 muscle that locks the shoulder, that restricts movement in the shoulder and in the scapula also. There's a lot of debates about that. What is the main muscle that's going to restrict shoulder and scapular mobility? And, lat is definitely in the top 3 contenders there. Pec major is a really big contender, and, the compound of the rotator cuff. But you got to stretch your lats regularly. If you're doing yoga, you're doing down dog all the time, you're going to get your lats. All right. Now let's keep going, guys. Let's rise up to our tabletop. We're going to go right for it. It's been a couple weeks since we did our lizard, so let's bring it back around. Right foot steps forward. Notice how I have my blocks. Okay, I'll turn to the side here. So you realize I'm kind of like crooked off my mat here. So I'm here. Now, what I want to see, yogis, regulars, you know it. This is one we're always going to do. My left foot crawls back, the left knee crawls back. So I went from here to the position here. That's my main goal. It's not to go down and forward. It's to get more here. Okay, you can even take a couple of breaths like upright, like pressing the blocks, lifting. Notice if your knee buckles out. Try to, press your big toe down, hug that knee in a little bit more. The reason I have my hands inside my foot is because then I get less pinching in the inguinal. What can happen is you'll get a lot of pinching there in that big ligament, and you won't be able to hold as long, all right? With practice, you're gonna come down to your forearms, maybe on your blocks to the floor. So I'm in the same pose as you guys. Let me face right forward so it doesn't look so weird here. You have some options, guys. Tucking the back toes, lifting the back knee. This is our first really big stretch, okay? We've entered into we had a couple warm-up stretches. Child pose, Sphinx, down dog. Now we go big, all right? With practice, you have even more options, kind of rolling on the outer edge of the foot intentionally, or for the last good 30, 40 seconds, you twist a little to the right. There are variations on the outer edge or the sole down. The right arm reaches back and grabs that left foot. Just to be clear, this is part of that coil stretching, all right? And again, the coil is always like, the most challenging, complex ranges. Yeah, try not to fidget too much. I know it can be tough, but that's that subtle discipline that the mind takes over the body. There's the 2 biggest muscles in your body that oppose each other really, right? Psoas major, your strongest hip flexor. So if you sit a lot, You need that one. And then the glute maximus, right? That's usually considered the main pelvic stabilizer in the posterior chain. So boom, you can't beat this one, okay? Go slow, let's slowly release. Now, if you do the bind, you're getting more quad. If you're starting to open hips, it can really take on a more complex form, but to start, it's just those two muscles. A little cat-cow might feel good. You can add anything else. I like to always suggest kind of a little moment of self-care, neutralizing residual sensations, okay? Left foot steps forward, guys, good old lizard. Right foot walks back. I'm trying to go for about 2 minutes, yogis. You gotta get at least 1.5 minutes. It's always good to take a few breaths in this first part, because if I just stay here, bringing the chest down, it's much different than if I like reach back and bind. So just so you're, noticing that first part where I kind of rambled on with all the instruction, that part is different. If you always do the bind, it's often good to just keep that chest facing down, both forearms on the floor, and hugging that knee and pressing that big toe down. It's different. Pressing the big toe down, hugging the knee in, it's going to be more like medial. And as I roll on the outer edge of the foot a little bit more, kind of let that knee open, it's going to be much more on the outer edge, almost like a pigeon type outer hip stretch. So just some food for thought, if you're always kind of doing it one way. You have to confuse the muscles, not only in exercise and strengthening, you got to confuse your muscles in stretching too. That is so key for change and growth, not plateauing. You got to find a way to confuse your muscles. You got to do like new exercises, more weight, or, you go from flat bar to dumbbells, or, you just add another plane. So listen, guys, that looks about 2 minutes to me. We're going to slowly neutralize. So we're going to go right into another big one. Now, I want to do this stretch earlier tonight. It's the adductor. It's important to remember that the straddle is very different from the adductor. We have the posterior inner thigh stretch, think triangle and seated forward fold, but I want to do really medial. So the easiest really medial stretch, it's always good to set up against the wall for this one. You don't really have to go forward. Soles of the feet together, and I can press my knees open. I like to I work at a lot of fitness centers, and I like take weights, like 20, even 30 pounds sometimes, and you like have the weights just sit on your knees and you just like breathe, right? I even do like resisted ones where I go like this with the weight. It's really a fabulous exercise, by the way. But I'll just put those weights on there. I have sandbags too, and you just hang. But if you want to add weight in this form, you want to do the frog. So quick demo, and then I'll give you a good 1.5 minutes more. Knees wide, feet wide, down to forearms. This stretch is a game changer because hip flexors run with adductor magnus. People that have hip flexors, they won't release. Okay, you definitely have to release more of your adductors. Can you widen your legs? From the side, yogis, look at how my hips relate to my knees. You see my feet are turned forward and back to the sides. Notice my hips aren't here. They're here in line with the knees from the side. All right, let's breathe. Yeah, this one is torture. If you need to get information out of somebody, you put them in frog and you put a little weight on their back. And you got to pad your knees, yogis. If that's the limiting factor, my knees hurt against the floor, you got to pad them. You know, the trick is the more you get flexible, the more it's on the muscle. And sitting on your muscle doesn't hurt, it's padding, right? So the less flexible you are, you're kind of on the knee, then you're more like between on the connective tissue and it hurts. And the more you get flexible here, it's kind of like, obviously the easier it gets. Your body is adapting. All right, guys, let's keep going just because I didn't keep track of that time and I don't want to torture you there too long. So let's shake that out. So we did big asymmetrical stretch. That's almost like a plank, right? You're basically on your chest like that. Get a little strengthening in there too. Now we're gonna go for that first big asymmetrical stretch in the rotational pattern for a lot of us. It's my favorite chest stretch. I always say if I had to pick like one shoulder stretch, it might be this one. It depends on the condition, but for about, I'd say 60% of the people would be a rough estimate. I'd say this is the #1 shoulder stretch just because of how we live our lives. Right hand reaches out. Regulars, you know all these stretches we're doing, okay? Let me just show you real quick, regulars. It's this, right? That's first variation in lateral rotation. Now, second variation is really same position arm, but I turn my palm up. That's actually quite different. You're probably gonna be way more flexible. See how I went like this? I can take a block here. So palm up is 1, palm down is 2, and then it's bent arm, palm down, 3, bent arm, palm up, 4, then it's straight arm angled, 5, then it's bent arm, 6. These are all different variations of a similar stretch. Okay, so you're basically on your back and you're on your chest and you roll a little to your side. Enjoy it, yogis, breathe. Try to relax a little bit. Close your eyes. When we're looking at the shoulders, I mentioned the main muscles that cause restriction and pain. I talked lat first, and now we're talking pec major. Let's call it the other opposite muscle. It's like the front complex, you know, stabilizer. It connects like your whole sternum and collarbone and, you know, runs through down to the shoulder bone. You got to stretch that pec major, yogis. That's your biggest upper front chest muscle, okay? Second side, please. Remember, guys, you don't have to do the same on both sides. I often say time-wise, but, you know, sometimes I'll do, my right shoulder is like really straight, just straight arm. So I'll stay there, especially if I did like pull-ups or something. My bicep tendon is tight across my elbow. And then I'll go to my left side, like, oh, it's not that tight. And I'm like, I'll go bent arm. It doesn't have to be same side to side. Your sides are not the same. When I work with somebody, you know, that has strong will, we just look at their weak sides a lot. Sometimes I will literally have them do one side of an exercise and not have them do the other side because they're so imbalanced. You know, golfers or someone who has really repetitive patterns in their lifestyle, you literally hit one side a lot. You don't even do the other side, okay? And don't forget, you know, say you're doing your morning walk, you can do this just standing. You walk up to a light post or a tree, look at this. You put your arm on it and you turn the other way. Basically the same thing, yogis. The arm is going back here, okay? You do that in morning walk. And if you wanted that last quick demo, we're gonna make our way back to center. You can sit up for a moment. I'd like to give that demo, just so we're clear. This is first position, that is second. Third,
fourth. Notice the elbow is in the exact same position as all the first four. This is where it changed. Right here, and then right here. So we actually do roll to this side, and we go here. Okay? I usually stretch my body like that with weights, but that is also good. All right, guys, let's get up now. Back to symmetry. All right, so you know we got to do the straddle. So this is very different from our butterfly or from our frog. It's gracilis. So it's the back of the inner knee, which is that's the semimembranosus. I'm a little brain fart here, but it's more medial, like posterior. Okay, let's sit up tall. Now I do want to do this in the 3 parts. We are going to add the side stretch. One of my favorite places to side stretch because it is that double traction for psoas. It's the psoas from the bottom is being pulled that way, right? So that comes out, and then boom, here we go. Right hand down. I do want to do my right side first, usually because the ascending colon is there, and that's how our peristalsis works. Lengthen your right side body. Nice stretch here. You know, think of it like a triangle. A lot of times in this class or yoga, you know, we do this one. It's kind of the same. Look, my hand's like inside the knee, and I'm kind of here. My foot was kind of like that. Very similar, kind of, if you're looking for a more active approach. All right, let's come back to center, guys. The goal is to keep your legs open for the whole time. You don't have to add anything else. You're gonna sit here, okay? Left hand down, right arm up is kind of a second, what we call in yoga, krama. It's like a second part of the pose. It's not really, the base is this. This is a little add-on. Last few breaths on this, please. And then I want you to take your time, yogis. We're gonna come back to center, sit up nice and tall, and then we have the final part. It's a little bit longer. These were about like half holds, they call them, or even, you know, not even a half hold really, but now we take the full center hold. Like I said, full center. Full hold is usually about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. Again, if your back is in pain, you should be lengthening more. It's not a spinal rounding stretch. Well, that's not our intention right now, or my intention. You could use it as that, but I'd say stretch your spine rounded more in cat-cow, right? So that was an intentional spinal rounding. We don't want tension to pull us into spinal rounding. That's a big difference, all right? So I'm lengthening through my core. And just so I can, something we don't do enough of in yoga, ever in gentle yoga, by the way, stay in stretch, please. Go pee-pees. Go pee-pees. Sorry, I had to let my dog out quick. She's learning to go pee, so she went over to the door and looked at me. So one of my favorite all-time exercises, if I had to pick a few, you know, for body weight, it's this one. It's like the dynamic, where I go forward and down. So that's the posterior hamstring tension, and that's really gonna change the game. Not just stretching it, but then eventually once you open up the line, to be able to be strong in the movement. You do it with weight too, right? I put like a sandbag, go to the gym, throw a sandbag on your back, you go forward, back up. We'll do that another day, guys. Let's get out of there. And you gotta shake it out, neutralize, please. Good girl. Good girl. No. All right, guys, here's the biggest front body stretch of class, everyone's favorite, right? So we're getting our big stretches done, so we can hold a few softer ones a little bit longer in a few moments, okay? So this is the big one.
It's the biggest knee bending. It's the longest front body lengthener. Remember, to really get our front body as long as possible, you have to bend your knees, all right? So knees go wide, heels, we sit on our heels. You see this? Knees wide, we sit on our heels. And then the goal, yogis, is to go back. It is a compression for your ankles. That is the whole purpose. Main goal is to sit on your ankles. Second goal, go back on your hands. Breathe, 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 yogis. Okay? If that's not a big deal, you can come down on your forearms or, start to go down a little bit. But with practice, just to be clear, do not force this one. This took me years to do. I was doing yoga like full time and still couldn't even get close to this. So, some people might just be naturally good at this one, but the upper back comes down. Notice nothing changed in my knees. They didn't lift. And then I kind of reach my arms here. This is going to really start by stretching your ankles. Then it's going to be your shins and the quads. Then you're going to get to your quads. It's going to be like your hips. And the final place is really big lower back, lower arch, big time. It's forced arch. So this one's going to be almost painful initially, right? That's normal. Try not to fidget. Last 45 seconds or so. By definition, the knee is supposed to bend. If it can't bend, it's losing function. And that's actually how you hurt your knees. When you let it go and then all of a sudden when you're trying to bend it. So like today I went after my class in person at the Bay Club. When I did weighted squats, I didn't do that much weight, about a little under my body weight actually, about maybe 80% of my body weight, all the way down, all the way up. I'm about 135 pounds on my back, right? I weigh about 160. All the way down, squat, all the way up with a lot of weight, right? So I'm always making sure my knees can move through their full range. Okay? Let's get out of there, guys. Please shake it out. Take a moment. Now, this next stretch's a little bit softer. Well, let's just say subtle. It's not easy, though. It's for our neck. Now, you got to take a few moments to neutralize while I demo, because that is we were going crazy just now. Frog and straddle and big chest stretch. These are all the biggest muscles in the human body. So it's very simple. Big toes touch, heels fall apart. Arms down by side, relax, palms up. Left ear on the mat. Our target is the neck, yogis. And it's actually a little release for your sacrum here, is medial rotation. Big toes touch, heels fall open. Arms down by side, relax, palms up. See if you can reach your hands further towards your feet. Close your eyes. Just notice if your chin is like tucked to your shoulder. Nice long neutral neck here, guys. If it's really tough, you could take that right hand and kind of prop yourself up a little. That's okay. Now we're going to do 2 rounds. That's the first side of the first round. So now, don't change anything except turn your second ear down, please. Now, we don't do this one as much. It is like a assisted rotation, or called, it's like a forced rotation, they call it, right? Where your head is being pushed to the side via weight. So like I said, if it's a little too much, you do still have to do both sides. You just prop one hand up to lift a little bit up, just so you're not so heavy, boom, down there. You're here, all right? Most of us can handle the full version, though. Come on, yogis, use your breath here. A lot of your neck muscles are all connecting to the ribs, right? That serratus posterior superior, that big breathing muscle that looks like a hand. It's like really deep against the ribs right here, right? It pulls the ribs like up and back. The yogis really work on developing that muscle. That muscle is really not that understood by a myologist like that well. It's kind of like, why is that thing there, right? But we really our lungs drive the energy production of our body, right? Your mitochondria and your cells take oxygen, literally like burn nutrients and create like energetic fuel. It's the oxygen that drives the process though. Okay, so let's do this second round, yogis. First ear down. You know, it seems like there's all these muscles that are designed to help the ribs like expand and contract better from like all angles. Like, can we get the lungs to spread like up in the back more? Can we get the lungs to spread like wide under the ribs, right? We have all these unique muscles that are like for breathing. We also have that same type of muscle. It's like this in your lower back, and it's serratus inferior posterior. So you have these big serratus muscles, and then like pull the bottom of your ribs like back and open. It's pretty cool when you see like master breathers do it, because their ribs go like, it's very interesting. All right, yogis, so final side, I'm pretty sure this should be your fourth part. So 2 times to each side, a little extra focus on this neck rotation tonight. And I do want you to remember that one, yogis. Some of you know I do body work, and I do floor massage. I have this huge pad, and people like have sore necks, and I'll have them do like literally change side to side for a half an hour. And they're like, whoa, my neck feels so much better. And that's like, it wasn't me actually, it was position. You know, rotations, side to side, hold, relax, breathe. Don't forget this one. It won't be easy. Get out of acute injury form, and then you do this one regularly. Let's get out of there, guys. Press back, child pose, take a moment. There's a lot of spinal rotation. We're gonna swing it around. So I do wanna do an outer hip opener. This is a good one. Let me just show you a couple options so you can choose. How about maybe we pick one you do less of tonight? The right shin in front of the left. Sit up. I do want you to notice though that my heels are not tucked under my legs and hips. They're out in front of me. So my shins are like parallel to the edge of my mat. All right, my feet are flexed. They're not kind of, pointed. And then I'm gonna go forward here. That's a really nice version. Another nice version is our compression pigeon. Right, this one is great. Another kind of go at your psoas. Again, upright, maybe coming forward. That right shin is angled, okay? An easier option could be here. But if you always do this one, it is really good to work in the compression pigeon. If you have back pain, this is probably a good one because your spine is not going to round like the previous ones. So this is always maybe our safest or something like that, okay? There's Gomukhasana, both seated or laying. There's also Lotus, that's in that quality. There's seated here, that's the same thing. But that's enough for me. Close your eyes, you're in it, you're breathing. And I'll be honest, like that's really not a stretch I do much of. Lateral rotation is one of the least ones I stretch. I actually, like today, I actually always do piriformis tensions actually. It's actually people don't do it ever. I don't get it. People always stretch certain muscles and never strengthen them. So piriformis tensions look like this. Does this remind you of anything? It's pigeon, but look, I'm here, set, start with no weight, but what is it? It's a hip hinge. And I press with the outer edge of my foot. It's a little better if you have like some stacked workout blocks. Let's do our second side. So when you get good at this, I would take my kettlebell, and I am feeling this right now because I did 3 sets. I hug the kettlebell here, like,
I'm pushing through the outer edge of my foot. Now this is a little bit high for me, and holy mackerel, you feel it right here. You will be walking like this after, like really crazy. Don't just stretch certain muscles, guys. I see it all the time. You know, people doing years of the same type of exercises. Try to start seeing, where do I always stretch? Maybe start strengthening them. Maybe remember I said here, oh, I'm getting really flexible here. So what do? I had strength. I always hold it still. I had movement. Just to kind of get you thinking about how you're approaching when you're not with me, doing your own thing, or even in my class. Like I said, it's like the magic of exercise is really, or let's just say of anything like studying, the magic happens in like the confusing of the mind and body, and combined with the will to get better, trying to get better, or getting outside your comfort zone or something like that. That's really the magic happens, you know, like confuse your mind and body. And that's the founding principle of neurobics, keeping your brain young, right? And the will to get better, okay? It's like courage in a sense. So let's finish up that final stretch there, yogis. Now, I do want to do a big spinal twist. We got this one here. Well, one of my all-time favorites. But here, if you have back pain, not as recommended. The spine is more rounded. Okay, if anything, you're kind of just here more, shoulders back and down, chest lift and twist. You know, that's a good one. A little bit softer could just be something like this. This is actually enough, right? It's a little less compound oriented, but you will sit up taller. Now, big one on the back is this one. Scooch my hips right over to the, scooch my hips to the right, right knee across to the left, okay? And then I reach my right arm out, and I actively reach my right knee to the left. And I actively reach my right arm away. And then I actively reach my left heel forward. And I actively reach my crown away. You could say it's the biggest stretch in class, really, right? There is a coil opportunity. Even though this does fall on coil, your right hand would reach down, your left knee would bend and grab that foot. Big stretching can make you sore. It also can injure you. All right. That's the biggest, you could say, spiral stretch of class. We did the one on our chest earlier. That's a little bit more what we call anterior spiral line lengthener. So that's happening more. And now it's kind of like, so the first one was like that, and now it's more like that. Okay, now second side. No. It's okay. Sorry, guys. I've been trying to let my doggy stay up here, but she is like, needs to be washed at the same time. So listen, guys, we're gonna do, I have about maybe 3 more stretches planned. And after that, we want to go into symmetry. Now, we already did this stretch, right? And I already mentioned, same thing. If we were going to do this, if you had back pain, I might not say, you know, do this, even though that's what I'm going to suggest right now. I would probably stretch like this more. We don't want, like, when you're doing something like this, in this form, if you're in a crunch, that's different because you are stabilizing the back, right? But here you're not. Right? So stretching like this when your back hurts is always a big no-no, okay? I'd rather have you bend your knees and go here, same as when you're standing. But if your back doesn't hurt, I do want you to round your spine. The way we stretch our posterior spine is spinal flexion, okay? And posterior tilt. So I don't want you to go like this. You do that initially, but hands down, watch what happens. My legs relax. My head relaxes, becoming a weight, creating this big curvature of my spine. I am intentionally holding a passive, slightly weight bearing, your head, spinal flexion. Okay, so I'm here. Now, the big boy of this one is, it's a bigger brother, is this one. Same thing, I'm letting this round, okay? But it's more weight, not really for when you have back pain. That's a lot of context, but in general, hyper rounding without stabilizing, you know, especially with weight, is a big no, okay? So one of those two, please. Here, here. It's actually one of the three. If you have back pain, main goal, first, stabilize. You know, minimal range, but still some quality of movement. You know, say you do something like jogging or even like rowing, you are in such a repetitive pattern. What's going to happen is your fascia, you know, people say fascia is the reason we have chronic pain, right? So say you're running every day, or you're rowing, elliptical, there is minimal movement through the spinal column. Your spinal column movements are this, 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 this. So in any of those facilities, what's going to happen is this is all going to harden and stiffen so you can do your task better, but then you're not really going to be able to do this. And when you do, you're way more likely to get injured, especially in any hyper range. So this, or, you know, like if you go into like really big twists and you never do it. When you think weightlifting, back injuries usually happen in the big stuff that's forward and back. But in life, it's always side bending and twisting, actually, right? It happens in forward bending too, though. All right, guys, I'm rambling tonight. It's been a long day. Woke up early. Let's get on our back. Now, you know me, I want to do our shoulder compression. It's our wrist stretch, our forearm and elbow stretch. So it is shoulder a ton too, but I'm mainly using it for like here. But if you're tightening your shoulder, that's where you're going to feel it most. You know the deal. Roll to your left, reach your right hand behind, right hand on the spine. Walk the hand up your back. Notice my elbow starts out, bring it down and in, and then bring the hand more medial on the spine, middle of the back. Slowly guide yourself, and let's lay on our back. You're just chilling, guys. You're just letting gravity do the work. You let your bones get heavy. Now, what's fun is when you start to apply strength to this range. Now, tonight I've been kind of talking a lot about, you know, variety and, you know, this idea of patterns and idea of subconscious. But I do want to be clear that routine really does trump variety. Variety does increase chance of injury for sure. But variety is a little bit more, you know, like functional. And like I said, it's the confusion of the muscles. So variety is a necessity. But you always do like a little, right? You know, you don't go like crazy, like, oh, I've never done these 10 exercises and do those all in one day. You do your normal thing, maybe, and you add one or two. Or, you know, you do, forgot what I was going to say. Okay, let's do our second side here, guys. We're in the end of class. So we got about 5 minutes left. And I want to give you time for like one more stretch of choice. So I'll throw a couple options at you. Okay, so you basically have to neutralize any compression stretch. You know, longer hold, weight bearing. You need extra, like I said, neutralizing the sensations involved. That can restrict blood flow, pinch nerves. You got to kind of shake it out. And then you roll to your right, left hand behind you. So you're laying on your back like this. All right. You're just hanging out.
Try to relax, yogis. You might think you're relaxing, but let the layers of tension keep exposing themselves. I like to suggest deep inhale, and on the exhale, keep relaxing the shoulder and the core and the neck area more. I hope you are noticing which arm needs this more. It'll probably be more sensational. Or maybe it's funny, sometimes like I'll feel like my right wrist feels it a lot more and my left shoulder will feel it a lot more. So you get like different effects in such a kind of complex stretch. It's good to notice. Keep trying to learn about your body. That's the first key in kind of helping it, is just understanding its condition better. So I'd like you to finish that up, guys. And now we'll just take like a minute or two for a final stretch of choice. This one medial here is fantastic. Boom. See how I did that one? I brought my feet wide, knees right. This one where the weight sits on the medial, God, so good. If you feel like you need another kind of lower back stretch here, I mean, you could even throw your legs up if your legs have been achy. I did half-hour leg inversion yesterday. And another nice one could be that fish. You can't beat this one if you have like upper back tension. You've just been feeling stuck anywhere in the neck, shoulders. You go here. We did Sphinx, and if you did the lean back child really well and deep, you don't need fish. But if you were like up here in fish, you didn't get the deep spinal extension. So you this might be good, that deep back bend hold, like the cow hold. Whereas before, here was our cat hold, spinal flexion, spinal extension. One last option could, be simply just kind of traction in the back of your neck, a little massage. So let me give you another minute and a half. We'll do a short, just kind of closing, grounding position, and then we're done, yogis. Like if you did plow, you wouldn't need this either because you already did that, right? The pinching of the chin to the chest. If you did this, you really don't need it either because you already got that. So if you didn't do the rounded spine, it might be good to throw that block under your back. Just showing you how those kind of relate and their substitutes. You notice a lot of people don't like stretch their spine a lot. They'll stretch like their shoulder joints and their hip joints. I'm like, your spinal actions are actually like first. Your spinal actions and your pelvic tilt, your neck and your waist, let's say, and your ribs and your pelvic tilt. That's always like primary, guys. So when you're done there, a lot of you look like you're already in Shavasana. So that's beautiful to see because we did do a lot. The goal is to, in the end here, is just get into a comfortable position. I like to lay on pillows sometimes, just cover my eyes. If you just do like 2 to 3 minutes, you can really shift the chemical body. There can be a lot of strain and stress, acid and inflammation from stretching too, right? Especially if you tend to tense up. Like I said, there's those dynorphins. Those are, the opposite of like an endorphin in the sense. They fill your opiate receptors, and it's like when you want to leave a pose, if you're really uncomfortable in a pose, you're producing a lot of those, by the way. That actually makes you more susceptible to the endorphins, which can help reduce inflammation and stuff. So it's so funny how it's designed like that. So final position, guys, relax, maybe a breath or two, close your eyes, let your bones get heavy. Let's end practice on that relaxing, grounding note. Final pose, relaxation position.